episode 57, titled Recap Network Security Essentials for Quick Reinforcement, we promise a fast, coherent sweep across the anchors that keep real networks both safe and usable day after day. The aim is reinforcement, not novelty. Remind your eye where to look first. Restate the control ideas that pay the most rent, and reconnect decisions to evidence you can actually show. Think of this as tightening bolts on a bridge you drive daily, small turns that prevent big problems. We will revisit zones and trust boundaries, the way segmentation pins lateral movement, how identity rules the management plane, why firewalls and egress controls must read like precise allow lists, and how foundational services and clean logging make every other decision sharper and faster when minutes matter. Start with zoning and trust boundaries, because they set the grammar for every conversation a packet can have. Declare deny by default between zones, then authorize only documented, minimal flows that pair a named source, a specific destination, and a business reason you can say out loud without jargon. Public, partner, internal, restricted, and management all carry different expectations. Write those expectations as one-sentence intents and keep them where engineers actually work. When a change request appears, the question is not, can we open this port? It is, does this port fulfill the zone's intent, and where is the receipt? That posture makes reviews shorter, auditors calmer, and incidents less surprising, because boundaries behave exactly as the diagram claims. Segmentation deserves a second look, because it is your lateral movement throttle. Use Layer 3 controls to enforce the broad strokes between zones. Then add micro-segmentation to trim east-west reach inside a zone so an intruder lands in a small cell, not a warehouse. Micro-segmentation rules should follow identities and service tags rather than brittle addresses, which keeps policy stable as instances churn. The habit to build is progressive containment. When a mistake slips through one tier, the next closes ranks. When an alert fires, you can point to the exact tier that raised it and the packet capture that explains why. Over time, this layered shape turns sprawling networks into curated hallways with doors that open only for the right badge. Administrative planes exist for control, so they must never ride the same paths as users or workloads. Reconfirm identity-aware access for every management hop. Reach devices through jump hosts, require mutual transport layer security, MTLs, and enforce strong phishing-resistant factors for humans. Bind privileges to roles with short-lived elevation, and record session activity so who changed what and when is a 1-minute answer, not a 2-day hunt. Remove direct management on data interfaces where a dedicated management network exists, and keep the habit of testing break glass paths so they are safe and real. When identity wraps every administrative action, configuration drift slows, surprises shrink, and recovery is traceable rather than theatrical. Firewalls and outbound controls carry most of the day-to-day load, and they work best when they read like shipping manifests, not diaries. Summarize them as precise allow lists, exact sources, destinations, ports, and application identifiers, each line tied to a plain language purpose, an owner, and a review date. Default deny remains the floor. Service-specific allows do the real work, and temporary exceptions are time-boxed with automatic expiration so urgent does not become forever. Outbound deserves equal precision. Replace any to internet with named update services, resolvers, partner endpoints, and documented application programming interfaces, then verify behavior with flow logs. A clean edge makes both incidents and audits faster because intent and enforcement finally match. Foundational services keep time, names, and trust straight, and that precision is what lets detection see clearly. Domain Name System, DNS, with validated resolvers and tight updates prevents redirection and supports egress monitoring. Network Time Protocol, NTP, with trustworthy sources keeps logs correlated so timelines make sense. A managed public key infrastructure, PKI, with short-lived, automatically renewed certificates makes transport layer security, TLS, predictable across humans, services, and devices. When these three are steady, every other control gets better. Handshakes validate correctly, revocations mean something, and alerts point to the right minute without guesswork. Treat them as reliability systems, not just security add-ons. Logs are your memory. Make them accurate, legible, and quiet enough to hear the important parts. Start with time, synchronized clocks, and consistent formats across systems. Add normalization and light enrichment so an event already knows the asset, zone, user, and policy that shaped it. Then practice alert hygiene. Turn noisy rules into periodic reports. Elevate crisp correlations that imply harm. And keep severities honest, so critical means critical. The test is simple and ruthless. Can an on-call analyst narrate a plausible attacker story from your logs in 5 minutes? And are the gaps obvious enough to fix next sprint? Good logging shortens investigations and stops false alarms from spending real energy. Remote access remains a staple, but it must carry posture and identity with it, not just a tunnel. Recap your patterns. A virtual private network, VPN, or Zero Trust Network Access, ZTNA, with strong device identity, short-lived credentials, and full logging of flows and decisions. Tie admission to posture disk encryption, endpoint protection present, operating system within policy, and keep reevaluation periodic so drift does not mean permanent trust. Publish the small number of approved remote paths for administrators and the separate, limited routes for users, then deprecate everything else. When remote access is explicit and evidence-rich, it stops being the wild card in your incident briefings. Wireless deserves its own heartbeat check, because convenience can quietly erode discipline. Revisit Wi-Fi Protected Access 3 Enterprise, WPA3 Enterprise, with 802.1x and strong Extensible Authentication Protocol, EAP, preferably EAP TLS as your corporate default, and keep guest, contractor, and IoT on distinct service set identifiers with distinct virtual local area networks and policies. Validate Wireless Intrusion Prevention System, WIPS, detections for rogues and evil twins, and ensure client isolation is on where lateral movement has no business. Measure auth failures, roaming health, and deauth anomalies as routine signals. When radio behavior sits under the same identity and evidence discipline as wires, surprises become rare and small. Partners expand capability and risk at the same time, so refresh your rules for third-party zones. Use mutual TLS between named service identities. Keep routes scoped to the minimum set that satisfies the integration, and record both the technical and business owners for each path. Rotate credentials on a calendar, not just after incidents, and test fail closures so an upstream change does not cascade into your core. The key habit is symmetry. What you require from your teams, intent, least privilege, evidence, you also require from partners, and you keep the receipts on both sides. Clear contracts and crisp telemetry turn trust us into something you can verify. Disruption happens, but disruption without a plan becomes downtime with blame. Refresh your distributed denial of service, DDoS, readiness by validating contracts with scrubbing providers, confirming anycast or content delivery network steering, and rehearsing activation with names, numbers, and timestamps that end up in a ticket. Pair that with failover plans you have actually tested. Routes shift, health checks converge, logs still write. And with communications that reach operations, partners, and customers in the right order. Controlled resilience is not a slogan. It is knowing how fast you can move traffic safely and how you will prove the sequence later. Pitfalls accumulate quietly until they become headlines, so call them out and clean them up. Any permits left just for a week, dual-homed hosts that stitch zones together out of sight, blind egress that lets a workload talk to the whole world, and disabled protections never re-enabled after a rush, each one has a straightforward remedy. Replace with narrow, named allows that map to purpose. Remove extra interfaces or force them into management enclaves. Define permitted destinations and deny the rest. And track temporary relaxations with owners and expirations. Make the cleanup visible. Pair each fix with a metric, and the culture will begin to prefer precise changes over broad ones. You can carry a 60-second mental map that touches each anchor with one cue and still get real work done. Say, zones mean deny by default, then one sentence per allowed flow. Say, segmentation equals L3 walls plus microcells tied to identity. Say, admin goes through jump hosts with MTLS and recorded sessions. Say, firewalls and egress are precise allow lists with owners and expiry. Say, DNS, NTP, and PKI are the trust and time spine. Say, logs are normalized, enriched, and quiet enough to hear the story. Remote access is VPN or ZTNA with posture. Say, wireless is WPA3 Enterprise, 802.1x, WIPS, and clean SSID purpose. Partners get mutual TLS and tiny routes. DDoS readiness is rehearsed failover and provider coordination. Find and retire any's, dual homes, and blind egress. That map fits in your head and guides your next change. Close with a mini audit that trades hours for lasting clarity. Pick 3 anchors, perhaps egress precision, management plane identity, and wireless discipline, and verify them against reality in one bounded segment. For each, capture the before view in plain sentences and 2 or 3 artifacts: a rule set diff, a session log with MTLS evidence, a WIPS detection sample. Make the precise adjustments your review calls for, then capture the after view with matching artifacts and one simple metric that shows improvement, such as reduced unauthorized denies, cleaner admin access, or fewer wireless anomalies. Publish a short note to the teams that own those paths. In a week, you will have proof that reinforcement is not just a recap, it is a rhythm that steadily strengthens the network you already run. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.